On today's show, our player capsule series rolls along with a deep dive into number one overall pick from last year, Zaccharie Risacher. Glen Willis is back on the podcast. We dive into Risacher from every angle, and it's coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2061 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Tuesday evening in late September. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, you bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today. I also want to encourage you at the top of the podcast, as I always do, to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out. Subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcast. We are on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so please like this video, leave a comment, leave a rating, leave a review, and tell your friends about the podcast. We appreciate you being here as always. Today, I'll be joined by Glen Willis of ATL 129 for part one of a two-part chat about Zaccharie Risacher. All summer long, we've been doing this series with Glen about all the players on the Hawks roster. We are nearing the end of this series, and this is a fun one to dig into. One of the most intriguing young players in the entire league, honestly. A player that could certainly take a step forward this season, and it's a two-part chat. So after part one is over, you will want to stay tuned for part two. It should be available in the same podcast feed as soon as part one is finished. All right, everybody, without any further delay, here we go with Zaccharie Risacher and part one. I am joined once again by my good friend, Glen Willis of ATL 129. Glen, what's going on?
I'm good. Kind of a crazy time, helping some family out right now and things like that. But it's great when you have an opportunity to pitch in and provide support, and you can do it. So it's been fun. But happy to make some time here to talk with you.
Yes, thank you in advance. I always thank you, but I thank you even more right now. I know what you're kind of dealing with. We've been talking, and I appreciate the flexibility and spending some time on a Sunday afternoon to do this. And yeah, we're coming around the bend. Only a couple more of these left through a busy summer. As we're recording, Media Day is about 2 weeks away. So we're getting closer and closer to that as well. And this is a fun one, and also one that we kind of had to wait on because Zaccharie Risacher played in Eurobasket. And we don't have to do a full-on Eurobasket deep dive. But it was interesting to see him. I thought it was relatively encouraging. It's been funny. I don't know how much you're following the day-to-day discourse nationally, but there have been a couple of unnamed outlets that kind of dismissed Risacher in Eurobasket because he wasn't playing a lot, which I understand. He wasn't playing as much as he probably should have been playing, honestly, for France. But everyone that watched, and I watched, I think every minute he played at least by the end. I thought he looked pretty good, and we were intentionally waiting to talk about him until after this because, like, what's going to happen? He could get hurt. God forbid. He didn't. That's good. But, I know you weren't dialed in because Kevin and Tyler told us all that when they were talking about Eurobasket without you.
Yes.
If you saw any, what did you see from Risacher? And I know that, like, the big thing really for me was physicality, but what did you see, if anything?
Yeah, well, I'm piggybacking on those who were able to watch very closely, like you and Kevin and Tyler and others. There are other Grant was doing a great job kind of putting stuff out there as well.
Yep.
Shout him out. But for me, I was following Adam Silver's suggestion and consuming highlights of Eurobasket. So I was fitting into the Silver template, I guess I might say.
Yeah.
But he does look bigger. He does look stronger. And he was rebounding a little bit with a little bit more kind of physicality than what he's able to last year. I thought his straight line drives were stronger. Last year, there's a lot of finishing around at times. When he can get to the rim, like he can hammer even left-handed dunk when he gets to the rim, but he just looks like he's taking a step with his body, as one does from 19 to whatever age we might talk about. When should be expecting to get there fully there with his body? Is that 21? Is that 22? What is that, right? And so for me, it was just kind of great to see him looking like he's putting in the work that everyone would expect him to put in, and it's showing up in terms of what his body looking different and further along.
Yeah, and again, we're not going to deep dive into the Eurobasket. I think it was useful. I don't want to overweight it. I don't want to ignore it. It happened. It's a good data point that we don't always get with guys between their first and second seasons. Like, you don't often, most guys you don't see play. Like we talked about Dyson last time you and I did one of these. We haven't seen Dyson since the season ended. And obviously he's older and more ingrained than Zach was, but most players, you don't see them anywhere between the end of the season and the start of training camp, other than like highlight tapes or workout videos or whatever. So we got to see a couple of games of Zach, which is nice to see, and we can maybe allow that to kind of inform some stuff, but not. I don't want to overrate it too much. And we'll talk mostly about how he actually looked last year, what's going to happen this year. I do want to just give the numbers on Eurobasket because I have them. He averaged about 10 points and 4 rebounds a game on 17.8 minutes per game. That was the controversial part. He didn't play as much as he probably should have. For France, they exited pretty early. He was 7th on the team in minutes, but on a per 36-minute basis, he averaged 19.6 points and 8.5 rebounds per game. Pretty strong, and also shot the ball well. 60% on twos, 41% from three. So for me, if you were on the Glen plan and watching, or the silver plan and watching highlights only of Eurobasket, I would recommend not taking the national stuff that I've heard terribly seriously, because I think they were probably on the same plan, honestly. People that I've heard mention this, and people keep asking me like, what do you make of this? I'm like, look, they're undervaluing Zach, but that's been a theme the whole time. We'll probably talk about that later on. I think Zach is as underrated as a player can be as the number 1 overall pick. Zach probably is right now, through no fault of his own. Like, he just kind of, they came with it, and people that listen to me know for a long time will know that I think this, but being rational in your expectation setting is very, very important in my view, and how you view everything in life, but especially, basketball, and young players. And yes, if you thought Zach was going to be, Wemby coming out of the gate, you were going to be misled by that. He was not going to be that as a rookie, and he wasn't, but that's also not a big deal. So that's kind of the big picture. We'll talk about all the things we normally talk about on these offensive arsenal, defense, future, all that stuff. But you mentioned the age. I want to bring that up too. He just turned 20, I think like the last week of the regular season last year. So he's going to play this season at 20 all the way until I think there are 2 games after he turns 21 in April. So it's effectively his age 20 season. He's still very young. Of course, he finished number 2 last year in Rookie of the Year voting, played 75 games, made 73 starts. Not something you would often see for a rookie on a team that was pretty decent last year with the Hawks. That also might inform some of what we talk about here, that he played a lot, but also wasn't playing like the full starters workload. He played only 32 minutes or more 5 times all season long. He was like living in that high 20s range most of the time, but he was playing a lot. And Glenn, you watch a lot of these rookies, guys his age, come in. How did you kind of take his rookie season? Because it was so interesting in that he wasn't going to be gifted a ton of minutes, but at the same time, he did play a lot for a guy, again, who was 19 on a decent team. Like, for me, that says a lot about him, but also, what I don't want to lead the witness here. What did you make broadly of Zach's first season? And we'll go from there.
Well, I mean, the outside dialogue is not really super interesting to me, but it's noisy. And for those people who are like, he was the first overall pick, he should have done more. Like, and they're just stuck on that. I ignore that. I just completely ignore that, right? And we can go back to other number 1 picks that have a different caliber going into a really bad team where they're going to be the central focus right off the bat. That was never going to be what Risacher was last year for the Hawks. They already have Trey there. They added Dyson, who was the most improved player, et cetera, et cetera. Kongwu, they're still developing him as their starting center. And so he was slotted in about like you expect. You and I talk all the time that this organization at this point are really, they're prioritizing skill fit. They're also prioritizing culture fit. And Risacher came with a reputation of team player, work hard, team first, take the assignment, all those sorts of things that the Hawks prioritize. And that's something that I think made the difference. And if they were looking at maybe Alex Sarr, it doesn't sound like they ever really were, as far as I know, but they were swinging towards a multidimensional, multi-purpose wing that can kind of go in and kind of do multiple things and develop him. But across the season, for me, I know that there were times that Hawks fans on social media would express like, why is Risacher not playing in the fourth quarter? NBA coaches in close games tend to play their veterans at the end of the game, right? That is a thing that is pretty normal. And one might say, well, yeah, but if we're prioritizing development the last season, we didn't make the playoffs. So there's space for that side of the conversation for sure. I don't want to just shut that down. But with Quinn's decision around closing with Terrence Mann, closing with George Niang the last couple months of the season, et cetera, pretty normal for what coaches do. And the other part of that, I wish we could get go on to some, website and get a printout for like what was their development plan for him last year. And playing him a ton of minutes may not, in their view, leave a ton of capacity and energy and time and cycles to work on that body and bring that body along. And so it seemed to me from what I was watching, this is a little speculation on my part, but yeah, we want to give him skill, minutes, reps, real reps, etc. But we also want to leave space and opportunity for him to work on his body, work off the court, advance his skill, and to balance those two priorities. That's my guess at what we saw last season across the season for him.
Today's just brought to you by Monarch Money. Some people can't even name their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. If you know the full picture, you actually leave money on the table eventually, and that's why you need Monarch Money. It's the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your financial life together in a one clean, easy-to-use interface, either on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people who have busy lives like myself, honestly. If you've been putting off your finances at times, organizing them in the correct way, Monarch is definitely for you because they do the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet yourself. For me, I looked at all my accounts together in Monarch Money, and we spotted some costs that I can actually save and get rid of. And those canceling of those commitments alone, saving money each and every month. You also maximize your investments, increase your savings rates, and much more. Talk to your financial advisors, talk to your partner about this, and also generally keep a clear view of your financial health overall, both in the short term and in the long term. Do not let a financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. And one more time, that code at monarchmoney.com is LOCKEDONNBA. A lot to get to with that, and I think, again, not to go back to the point about expectations, but I sometimes it's like kind of simple. Like I would have understood, I wouldn't agree, but I would understand the reaction that I've seen more if there was a guy blowing everybody out of the water as a rookie, or that was like, whatever you want to say. If there was a traditional number one overall pick that they just like kind of ignored and that guy had a monster season as a rookie, I would probably downplay that, but I would at least understand it. Spoiler alert, Glenn, that guy doesn't exist in this draft. I mean, whether you thought Risacher should have won Rookie of the Year or not, he had a real case to win Rookie of the Year by the end. He didn't win, but he finished second. It was fine with me. It didn't bother me too much. I would have probably voted for Zach, but it was close enough. But he was top 5 in minutes. If you started the season on like December 1st or January 1st, I think he would have won Rookie of the Year, which is good. I mean, obviously it all matters, but I think grading on something of a curve, and I'm sure someone in YouTube comments will say that I'm coping or something, and that's not really what I do. That's not what these are for. If you're new to the podcast, like Glenn and I don't really do that. We just talk about what we think. But anyway, I was encouraged by his rookie season. We'll talk about that more in a second. But on the minutes development plan, it actually was interesting to me that they played him. Like, it helped that he was out for about, I think he was 5 games in a row in the middle of the season. And other than that, he was healthy, which is good. But also, this is a training staff, not that they're like super duper cautious, but they are, I would say, responsible, and they have a plan, and they kind of listen to their doctors. They're not a Thibodeau style operation, we'll say. Quinn is not like super duper new school on that front, but he's not super old school either, where he'll listen to the training staff, and if they tell him one thing, they're going to listen. And Zach was 18 years old when he was drafted, basically, and was 19 all his rookie season. And by the way, we talked about it already, but we'll talk about it much more, I'm sure, was really skinny. And I don't think that him playing much more on a cumulative basis was their plan. Even if he had spotless injury, and he basically almost did, but even if he played all 82 games, I don't think he would have suddenly been playing a ton more minutes overall. They probably had a relatively in line with what they actually did plan for his minutes. And yeah, there were times, and I'll raise my hand, there were times during the season where I was like, man, he probably should be playing more here. And I said that. But also, I think you're right that some of that was planned. You do want to listen to your veterans. I know the Hawks were not like a title contender, but they were trying to win throughout the season. That definitely impacted things. If they had been, not to mention a team, but let's just mention a team. If they had been the Wizards last season and Zach was on the Wizards, I think he would have played more. And he played more than enough. But Bub Carrington led the rookie class in minutes last year. Not because he was awesome. He was on the Wizards.
That's what happened. I'm a big fan.
I'm not saying anything bad about Buck Carrington. It's just more that he led the class in minutes because he was on the Wizards and he stayed healthy. Those two things are the reason why he was able to do that. But Zach being top 5 in minutes as a rookie on the only team up. I mean, Jalen Wells is the other guy, but Jalen Wells was a grown up. He was already 23 years old. He was a later pick. And by the way, only played that much because they had a bunch of injuries in Memphis. So we don't have to keep talking about this. I just feel like heading off at the pass to say, man, he had this disappointing rookie season. Like I don't know what you're watching if that's what you think. I mean, if you want to say that you were hoping for more, that's fine. But it was just never going to be what people. If you're comparing him to the prototypical number one overall pick, that's not smart. It's not, and that's not his fault. That's the other thing. Nor is it the Hawks' fault.
Right.
We'll find out in 3 years, 4 years, if they made the right pick or not, Glenn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if we look up in 4 years and somebody else is just like clearly the better guy, hat tip to them. But right now, I don't think that you could say that, even if you're not as high on Risacher as perhaps you and I might be.
Yeah. I mean, I'm high on him. It's going to be interesting to talk about when we get to what do we think he's going to be in 2 or 3 years. I think that's what really matters the most. But I mean, Castle went into a team where expectations were high. Chris Paul played on that team. Wemby, obviously, one of the guys that the league is really trying to feature. Unfortunate health situation for him last year. Hope that's getting all worked out for him. The league needs him playing. He's a great, marketable kind of guy for the league in general. But it does surprise me the team that was really pumped into more primetime games, according to the plan at the beginning of the season, that Castle kind of went out. Castle was a defensive disruptor from the very beginning of the season. Obviously, you can look at his efficiency on offense and challenges around that. But, Zach, for the first 2 months of the season, wasn't consistently making 3-point shots. That really came around the last half of the season. And we could talk about how his growth month over month and those things. And you and I talk about all the time, media members vote on these awards, and they have busy schedules. They're on airplanes a lot. A lot of the voters are on airplanes, And so it's just to me, it's a problematic kind of system for how people vote. Because I'm like, well, how many Hawks games did you watch? You want to ask, And so I want to cut those people some slack. I don't think it's the voters' fault that they're relying on a pool of people who has only so much bandwidth to consume so much NBA basketball to kind of figure out where they're going to have their votes and things like that. You always see 3 to 5 on every ballot. That's just like, I have no idea what that was about, but it's, but for me, and that for that reason, I just don't get invested in awards that much. I think it's a messy system, but to your point, like what matters the most is Zach improved consistently across last season, especially once you turn the corner in January. The growth was obvious and it was there. And in my mind, one of the aspects of him limiting his minutes, we can argue good or bad, was that he missed some reps that could have helped him or not. Fair conversation to have, fair dialogue to have. But that left space for him to really develop skill working off the court across those months and to put his energy into that part of his development. And I think that showed results across February, March, and into April especially.
Yeah, I think we agree on that. I'm intrigued, and this is one of those interesting ones. Like, we try to give the whole picture on all of these capsules, but Zach's is unquestionably more like future focused. We'll talk about this coming season. Of course, it matters a lot to where the Hawks are. The Hawks are trying to win now at a level that they have not in several years. So what he is now does matter, but also it's much more of a future-facing one than some of these would be. Because look, I mean, he's younger than most of the rookies that we're talking about for this coming season. Like, he's that kind of age player, and it's not all about age, but he is a developmental piece, and he will not be his fully functioning, full prime self in his second season. It's just not going to be that way. But you hope for growth. You hope for clear, obvious growth, and I think we'll probably see that. I want to start with the defense as a kind of a curveball and come back to the offense, because that's just maybe not what people will expect us to do. Defensively, I found it very interesting the way that he was discussed. And that doesn't necessarily matter, to your point, like trying to block out the noise, talk about what he actually is. But I think he was both impressive in some ways as a rookie with stuff like awareness, willingness, like to get his nose in there and do some things, even though he had those physical limitations as a pretty skinny kid. But also, we can be fair and say, like, there were certain matchups where it was kind of ugly at times, like as a rookie might have. Some of the more advanced numbers were not super duper kind to Zach's defense last year. And I'm trying to then, especially this one, I found myself kind of trying to look beyond this, like the inputs that I normally would use in these conversations, because he was a rookie, because he did kind of play a bigger role than you would expect. But it's also fair to say for me, and maybe you disagree, I think there's like clear things that I like about his defense and clear things where I'm going to say he either it's a question mark area or it's like a, hey, he's got to take another step in this area. Like for instance, one to throw out there that I've already said a lot this summer, so it's not breaking any new ground, is his rebounding. He was a very bad rebounder last year for the position and his size. Now, rookie caveats, there's a reason for that. I get why, but also that's an area where I've circled. So what did you make of his defense in general, knowing that it was an interesting situation for him?
Yeah, I mean, and for a rookie especially, I think the context is always quite situational, right? There were times when the Hawks were not facing, say, a top offense in the league, and they could deploy Dyson and Risacher together to have two guys who can defend on the ball. I think Risacher, that part of his game showed up quite well, right? But when you're playing a top offense that moves the ball well, spaces the floor, plays with pace, and that's where his kind of lack of experience would show up a little bit more at times. I think that got incrementally better across the season as well. But playing alongside Dyson made things easier for him when they could do that, right? Now, last year they didn't have. I mean, Risacher, was he the second best point of attack defender they had on the roster last year? It's a big.
Maybe Keaton Wallace would be the other guy, but he was on a two-way. So that's not what it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Keaton has a lot more experience in it from an NBA context, and so I don't want to dismiss Keaton. You know how much I love defensive players.
Guy. Yes.
But from Dyson to Risacher is like this. It's not like Risacher was there, but you hope that like he kind of makes that progress. And for me, as I think about spinning into this coming season, my question is, and maybe we'll figure this out in even the first 2 or 3 preseason games, is what position defensively do they have in mind for him going forward? Last year, the lack of power forward depth, we beat that horse over and over and over. He was sliding a lot to the 4, and a lot of lineups really didn't have the strength for that. Really didn't have kind of the grown man body for that. And so when he would kind of tag a center rolling down the middle of the floor and pick and roll, sometimes a little late, just not strong enough to kind of keep him off the rim, that stuff showed up a lot. So big questions for me, like how much do Porzingis and Onyeka play together this coming year? And does that slot Zach more like 80% of his minutes at the 3 as opposed to splitting some more time at the 4 like he did last year and pushing him up the 4 towards the ball, towards point of attack defense? Because I think that's where he's going to be strongest is defending on the ball. Now off the ball, he does have good feel, but even when he has good feel, good timing, showing up on time, shading help, all that stuff, still going up against a 28-year-old, 250-pound center wasn't going to work last year for him. And so some of that is technique. The other part's just letting that body come along. And so I thought he shows. I mean, I think the defensive processing is all there. He just needs the body to come along, and that's going to take some time.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is finally here. FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, if you are a new customer, you can bet just $5. If your first bet wins, you get $300, just $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel Sportsbook app. FanDuel is great in so many ways, and one reason is because if it's however you actually like to bet yourself, whether it's player props, same-game parlays, straight bets, whether it's over-unders, money lines, point spreads, etc. Plus, they have futures, even live betting as the player action unfolds. It's all there for you at FanDuel. And they make everything more exciting all the time, whether you watch your favorite teams play, your favorite players play, or just fantasy lineups, etc. They also have every single sport you can think of across the board. They have the NFL, college football. Of course, they have the NBA, which we talk about all the time on this podcast. Plus, they have baseball, hockey, golf, tennis, soccer, both domestic and international. Plus, they're auto racing like F1, NASCAR, etc., boxing, MMA, and so much more. FanDuel is quick, it's easy, and they're also fast to pay out when you win, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays this fall and this winter. So the question is, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com, place your first dollar bet, and get $300. Yes, $300 in bonus bets at FanDuel. Check it out right now at FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app today. For sure. And I think the position thing is actually interesting. I always think about positions first as who you defend and how you defend, much more their offense. And I think Zach is a 3 primarily. I think he's probably going to be a 3 primarily his whole career. With that said, he was asked, to your point, to play more 4 than he probably should have last year out of necessity. And I think there were times when you could see the coaching staff almost saying, we don't want to do this, and we kind of think we have to. With Zach at the 4. And part of that was rebounding. Part of that is just general physicality, executing schemes at different positions. Because some teams, some schemes are like the 3 of the 4 are kind of similar. Some teams it's not that way defensively.
Right.
It kind of depends on what you're trying to do. But I do think that, and I think Cleveland Glass had it like 75% 3, 25% 4 last year for his full minute. That sounds about right to me without going deep into my notes to look.
Yeah.
But I think they probably maybe the arrival of Mo Gay plus you would hope a full season or full-ish season from Jalen should keep his minutes at the 4 down. Plus, you already said it, but Okongwu playing there a little bit potentially with Porzingis. There probably hopefully will not be a ton of 4 minutes for Risacher. But I also think he could probably be better suited to play there if you had to, because he will be bigger, he will be more physical, he will have had a year under his belt. So it's kind of a double-edged sword where it's like you probably don't want him to play there a ton, but now I think he probably can a little bit more. And I think what you said earlier, looking 3 or 4 years in advance, I do think that by the time he's 22, 23, he's going to be able to be a backup 4. And you're not going to worry about it.
Agreed.
Like his length, I mean, I've already seen and laughed at kind of the conspiracies about his height now, and I haven't seen him yet in person. I'm looking forward to media day. He might have gotten taller too by some of the pictures and something like that. Him and Alex Sarr looking eye to eye each other in Eurobasket. Like he might be 6'10", 6'11" now. That's actually not crazy to think. Yeah. But beyond the height, just if he's 6'10" 230 versus 6'10" 205 or whatever he is now or was last year, that matters a lot too. So I think positional thing is actually really interesting because if he was able to play more 3, and look, the other thing is Nickeil Alexander-Walker's on this team. Yep. So now you have clearly 1A, 1B primary perimeter guys in Dyson and Nickeil. So you don't have to ask Zach to do that. Like he's hardly ever going to be the number 1 perimeter defender on the floor unless something has gone wrong injury-wise. And that's probably good for him too.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting to see what Quinn decides on. For how many minutes a game does he want 2 of those 3 on the floor? Dyson, obviously number 1. I've said, Nickeil Alexander-Walker gives you, I think, 85% of what Dyson does, but his impact is more on ball. Dyson impacts off the ball tremendously as well. And Zach becomes that third guy. It's like, does Quinn want to see, we want to cover 38 minutes a game with 2 of those 3 on the floor at all times, because those are our 3 kind of primary point of attack defenders in that pecking order. That'll be interesting to see. The other part is, as he gets bigger, there can be a little bit of trade-off for kind of mobility, in those things as well, because you just got more weight to move and all of that. And so that's going to be fascinating to me. And then going back to, what Quinn, I know that there was a handful of Hawks fans that wanted to kind of burn the timeline down, but Quinn was playing man and Niang for the last 6 weeks of the year, almost exclusively. And Niang at the 4 low man, it was just like, oh boy, this is 20% better than when Mr. David Roddy was kind of playing it, And I mean, Niang is a professional. He knows where to be and stuff, but he also knows what he can't do. So Quinn was definitely down the stretch trying to not put that kind of physical work, at least it appeared to me, trying not to put that kind of physical workload on Zach. And I remember the Milwaukee game where Man probably played 25 minutes on Giannis, in that game down the final weeks of the season. And so I think they were trying to say, let's not do something that's going to be bad for him. Let's not overload him and those things. But, for me, it's just kind of coming into the season, the improved roster. We talk about it all the time. They're going to be able to kind of slot him, I think, into a role that's more optimal for where he is, where last year he was asked to do some things that I think that he was obviously not ready to do. I think the trades at the deadline were part of that was to set themselves up for the financial flexibility they had coming into the summer. But the other part of that was to protect Zach as much as they could, right? And I think that was a kind of a multidimensional kind of objective around what they did at the deadline.
I agree for sure. And one reason I emphasize his Eurobasket rebounding numbers, again, that was 8.5 per 36 minutes at Eurobasket. Again, tiny sample, I get it, was that he had 11% defensive rebound rate last year. And I would be generous and say some of that is playing next to someone like Jalen for half a season. And Jalen is maybe the best rebounding 4 in the entire league, non-Giannis division. He's that good. But also I think Zach's going to have to get better there. They probably know that. Being more physical will help that. Attacking more will help that. We talked about it a little bit already, but I wanted to ask you about his, being a lone man. He actually had some pretty intriguing and encouraging, block rate numbers and he had a couple of nice highlight plays. He had one at Eurobasket actually, kind of a pretty impressive, covered a lot of ground, backside help block. I think he has the ability to potentially do some of that, and we saw that a little bit as a rookie. we talked about the role already, but big picture, like, how do you see the best version or a good version of Zach's defense going this year? And then how does that kind of inform moving forward as we kind of flip to the offense in a second?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think I'd like to see the organizing come along. I mean, the processing is there and stuff like that. But last year, it's like there were times you see like, oh, Trey's low. I'm going to go get him out low and kind of push him up the floor, kind of get him out of the corner. And sometimes it's like, well, it's Trey or Niang, and he's still trying to like, okay, I'm just going to shade help towards that direction because that looks rough, And so some of that processing was there as well. But I think he's, I just think everybody just needs to be like, okay. He's probably not going to have his full grown man body for maybe one more year, whatever it might be. No matter how hard he's working, there is a thing where you add too much weight too quickly, and it becomes actually bad for you physically, and those sorts of things. And so that's interesting to me. But for me, I'd like to see him kind of slotted like 1B point of attack defender, and then kind of that help defender, the shading that help. He's good at jumping passing lanes. He knows how to use his length. Those sorts of things. And so there's a lot of really good stuff there. It's just a matter of now, like, you got Jalen back, hopefully healthy all year, weak side rim protection, Porzingis with excellent weak side rim protection, and then where Zach doesn't have to be that guy. Zach, I thought last year, he was great in the transition. He was a really good transition defender for a rookie. He had several chase down blocks from behind, like rescuing a kind of a defensive transition possession and those things, or he sees that, takes the angle. And it's impressive to see a 19-year-old know what angle to take to avoid the foul and still get to the ball. There were probably, 8 to 10 times last year he did that. You're just like, wow, that's really impressive for a 19-year-old. And I'm excited to see all that just kind of keep coming, especially with the improved roster context. It's going to let you kind of situate his role more where it should be this year than obviously last year, where it was just kind of they were working through a mess of injuries and didn't help.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, would say, one of the things I've seen, it's been maybe divisive, not in a bad way, but like about Zach's history as a role player, like he was kind of comfortable doing that. That can be good and bad. Like I think the Hawks actually want to push him out of that a little bit on offense. We'll talk about that in a second. Yep. But I think he is willing and able to operate within a system and a scheme defensively in a way that most guys his age are not, which I appreciate. And I know I don't see everything the same way you do, and I defer to you a lot on the subtleties of defense and stuff like that. But I was impressed by that. Just the fact that you can kind of rely on him. He might get run over last year. That might happen. Might get run through, but he was generally going to be in the right spot. And that's not a small thing for a rookie, man. Like, part of the reason why rookies are so bad, as a general rule, is that they screw up. And he screwed up too. Like, obviously he screwed up too. Like, I'm not saying he was perfect. He wasn't. Right. But on a screw up per 48 minutes basis, it was far lower, I feel like, than most guys his age, which I'm encouraged by. Also, he's a relatively low foul player already. Like, I think I had the number in front of me. He averaged 2.9 fouls per 36 minutes last year.
Yeah.
As a rookie, that's great. Like, you almost want to be more aggressive. Like, go stick your nose in there even more, Zach. But like the fact that he wasn't out there hacking guys, and he had some tough assignments. We talked about it already, but he was often defending like a player established in the league, and he was not like fouling out. I mean, there was the Luka thing at Eurobasket where he was fouling Luka a bunch, but also had some really good reps on Luka too. So you can see both sides of that. But I don't want to emphasize this too much. But I've just been impressed with his maturity. And I know offensively, that's going to be the more attentive side for everybody. But one of the reasons I want to start with the defense was that. But also, like, it doesn't have to be highlight plays. Half the battle for a guy who already has his length and his physical ability potentially is just like executing. I think he can do that already. That's actually really nice. Especially, I know Quinn. I know Quinn loves that. I know that Quinn, like, not being just terrified of what he's going to do. When I say I mean the rookie guy on the court is helpful for the staff.
Yeah, for sure. And then even like Eslo, man, there's a Zubac just coming through the paint. He's like a lot of rookies are like, Olay, I don't have it, he's like, no, I know where to be. I'm gonna go try, and even if I end up like looking silly, I'm still going to show up and try to impact this play. And as we talked about, with his body gets stronger and stronger, hopefully that gets that moves the needle in that area. But you love that he's like, no, it's my job to get there and try to impact the roller to the rim. Still makes that effort, and is not worried about the optics of like, well, if he gets posterized or whatever it might be, he doesn't care, right? He's not invested in that kind of part of what looks good for him personally or not good for him, and that's one thing that the Hawks clearly love and appreciate. about him just being willing to kind of go in there and kind of mix it up, even when it's a task that's, that's bigger than maybe what was ideal for him last season in those situations.
All right, that is all for part 1 of 2 with myself and Glen Willis talking about Zaccharie Risacher. Stay tuned right now in this same podcast feed for part 2. It should be available right now, immediately on Apple, on Spotify, on YouTube, etc. Please check us out and follow the show on social media. We are on Twitter at Locked On Hawks. I am on Twitter at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland. Also, you can follow my non-podcast coverage of the Hawks at patreon.com/BT Rowland. One more time, part 2 available right now, and we'll see you all next time.